Hi QA folks, today I want to talk to you about what is a test plan in software testing and what is the difference between test plan and test execution. So first of all, earlier a few years ago it was test plan was a document, a separate Word document that you were supposed to write right after you wrote testing strategy. But nowadays, test plan means in all those position description, job descriptions, usually it means equals test set, test suite. Basically, it's tests that you are going to write and execute. Just for the sake of the document understanding, usually it's not required to write it, excuse me, in most of the companies. But anyway, if anyone would ask you to write it, to prepare such document, usually it focuses on resources and schedule required to implement test strategy for a particular release. It describes how the testing team is going to organize and perform the testing activities. Usually it includes roles and responsibilities, resources, who will test, how many test engineers do you have, who will test what, when, meaning schedule, test design execution approaches that are going to be used, scope of work, what is going to be tested, what's not. For example, you can specify if performance testing or load testing is not planned for this particular release, it should be reflected in your test plan that you are going to do only functional testing and you're not going to perform any kind of performance testing. Acceptance criteria, like ready for testing, that the criteria to start testing. For example, that the system's application should be deployed in test environment, everything should be stable, smoke test passed, and so on. So acceptance criteria to start testing, risk assessment, if you have any bug severity definitions, and so on. So this is what usually is included in that type of document, but as I said, nowadays almost no companies ask to write it down. So what they mean in all those job descriptions and what they usually mean when they ask you to write a test plan, to come up with a test plan. Usually it's a set of tests, test suite, sometimes it's called test sets in some systems, in some it's called test suites. Basically it's a list of your tests. For example, feature 1, create account, you will have specific tests like create retail customer account, create brand affiliate account, create admin account if you have different type of accounts, right? Then for next feature will be a login with correct credentials, incorrect credential checks for error messages and so on. This will be feature 2 test set. Feature 3, for example, place order if you are testing some kind of e-commerce platform or marketplace. It will be place order for one product, for few products, different shipping methods used, order cancellation, and so on. The next feature will be, for example, profile info, update payment method in profile, update address, and so on. So test plan includes all of your features, all of your tests for all features. And it might be larger test plans, might be smaller test plans. This, for example, this list of tests is a test plan by itself for this specific feature. This is test plan for this specific feature. This is test plan for this specific feature. But all of them together is also test plan for the whole system, for regression testing, for example. Now, what kind of test plans or test sets? What is the minimal required amount that you're going to have in terms of types? Usually you will have regression test set, test suite. It's full regression testing, includes all the tests. Like in this example, it's regression test set, regression test plan. So all new features that you will cover with your test, you will write your new tests and you can add them straight to regression test set, because if you will write them somewhere separately, you will need to include them copy paste into regression test plan anyway, but I wouldn't advise you to copy paste, just write them directly, create your test cases directly in regression test folder in whatever system, test management system, test case management system you are using. Because if you will need to update something in one test, if you store few copies, you will have in different places, in different folders, you will have to update steps, whatever changes you want to update, to introduce in all those places. It will bring a lot of headache. So yeah, regression test set usually includes all the tests that you have. Regression testing, the purpose of regression testing is to check that nothing is broken, so you should perform all of the tests to find if something got broken in different places after all of the changes your team introduced to the software, to different parts of your system. And so regression test set, it's first type. The second type is smoke test or smoke test set. Usually it's small set of tests to quickly check main functionality, that nothing is broken right after deployment. For example, your developers or your DevOps can deploy bug fixes and new features daily, and it's not sufficient to perform regression tests, full regression cycle every day, because it requires a lot of time to execute all of your tests. So that's when smoke test comes into play. It usually just quick check that nothing is broken. For example, I would run for this specific test plan, I would run couple of test cases, create account that you are able to create account, still create it, able to create accounts, and second, place order, that orders can be created, placed, and go through statuses. So this is the difference between regression tests and smoke test set, or regression test plan, smoke test plan, in terms of test plans. Now, a couple more comments or ideas. So, what is test execution and how to manage it? So first of all, test plan is and what is the difference between test plan and test execution? So first of all, test plan is a set of tests, list of tests with steps without any status if it's passed or failed. Test execution, on the other hand, is a specific run of those tests on specific dates with statuses if test is passed or failed. So basically, first you will write test cases in test plan, you will create test plan, and only after that you can create test execution from this test plan. So you will use the same test plan and create few test executions for each round of testing. So it's relation one-to-many relation. You will have one test plan and many test execution create from this test plan, if it makes sense. Now let's talk how to manage it. Meaning on some of the projects I see that nothing is assigned or distributed between all the team members. It's kind of crowd testing. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be crowd testing. When everyone is testing everything, nothing is assigned to anyone. For example, on one of the projects I had like 1,000 tests in QA manager, and we had like 5 QA engineers. Regardless, test automation or manual testing, doesn't matter. Everyone was participating in regression testing. And whenever every round of regression testing should be performed, basically QA manager saying, guys, here's test set, go and test everything like in crowd testing type. or approach. It wasn't clear who will test which areas, who is responsible for what. There were some people just sitting around doing nothing, waiting for everyone else will execute all the tests for them. So it's really bad approach to perform regression testing by following crowd testing approach when nobody is responsible for anything. It doesn't work. So assigned, I would advise, if you will create test execution, you have a lot of tests and few team members, QA team members, distribute workload evenly between all team members, assign feature 1, for example, in this case, feature 1 testing will be assigned to test engineer 1, feature 2 will be assigned to test engineer 2, test engineer 3, and test engineer 4, and so on. If you are the only one person in the team, of course it will be only you who will test everything. But again, just distribute workload evenly between all of team members. Do not left anything unassigned. Just assign specific task set to specific person to execute it. And usually, who is assignee for the task, meaning test engineer, the same person who writes test cases will be the same person who will execute them. At least at the first round of testing. Later you can rotate who will test what by assigning different areas to different test engineers. But generally speaking, if you write some test cases, you will be the first person who will be executing them. So basically that's it. Again, main idea that I wanted to reach you is that test plan is a list of test cases. Test execution contains statuses. Test plan doesn't contain them. And test execution should be manageable, meaning assign tasks or features, testing of each specific feature to specific people. Do not allow it to be crowd testing. You will not get any positive outcomes of that. That's it for this video. See you in the next one.